Saints at Bears will be one of the most important games when it comes to head coach Kellen Moore's early legacy. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, it is a big-time revenge week game for the New Orleans Saints going up against former head coach Dennis Allen and the Chicago Bears. The Saints defense has a lot to try to prove to its old leader. Kendre Miller could be en route to a big week up ahead. And of course, we'll kick everything off with the head-to-head matchup to what was versus what is Dennis Allen versus Kellen Moore, and why this game could be very important to Moore's early legacy. We got all that coming up for you on today's show. We appreciate you very much. Whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. The New Orleans Saints are going to be traveling to take on the Chicago Bears in a game that has so much drama attached to it, it could be its own reality TV show. The former head coach of the New Orleans Saints, who is simultaneously responsible for bringing defensive identity back to New Orleans Saints football and for the downturn of the team's golden era, is now the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears in Dennis Allen, and the new offensive wonderkind, offensive genius, youngest head coach in the NFL actively today, is going to be going head-to-head up against his predecessor on Sunday. This is a very important game, as it turns out, for Kellen Moore's, we'll call it early legacy, what he'll eventually leave behind someday as the New Orleans Saints head coach, a story that could begin a very important chapter here upcoming to this game in week 7. Kellen Moore's first game, obviously a very big part of the story that will be told of the Kellen Moore era in New Orleans. Kellen Moore's first win will be a big part of that as well. Kellen Moore's decision at quarterback will be a big part of that. And now the week 7 matchup up against the former head coach of the Saints in a head-to-head situation. This is not Kellen Moore going up against another head coach who's also calling an offense. This is Kellen Moore going up against the former head coach that's calling the defense that is specifically on the field to try to stop Kellen Moore and his offense from putting points on the board. This is a head-to-head revenge matchup. We don't see this very often. And so being able to see a game like this, I think, is part of what makes this game so exciting. I cannot wait to get on the flight to Chicago and to watch this game in person from the press box, because this game has massive potential for storylines, narratives coming out of it, the good kind of narratives, not those kinds of narratives, but storylines that could come out of this, the confidence that could be built in this matchup, the question marks that could come from this matchup if it doesn't go well. There's a lot here. And I will say this, it feels like Kellen Moore could have a little bit of an advantage going into this matchup in terms of his offense versus Dennis Allen's defense. The Dennis Allen Chicago defense has all the trademarks of a typical Dennis Allen defense. They're aggressive. They're physical. They go after the football. They take away the football at a high rate, especially in the passing game. 8 interceptions so far this season. However, struggle against the run, 31st in the NFL there, and struggle to generate pressure as well. Does that sound familiar for a Dennis Allen defense? Definitely something that has been a part of the story when it comes to Dennis Allen in the past. Right now, Dennis Allen's defense is only, the Bears defense, only generating pressure on 27.7% of opposing dropbacks, according to our friends over at True Media. That's 29th in the NFL. So, New Orleans does have some good telltale signs that they might be able to swing something here. The run game is a place where the Saints, against the Buffalo Bills and against the New York Giants, going up against two bad rushing defenses, put some good things on tape in terms of their run game in both of those games. Now, after going up against a much better run defense, a top 10 run defense in the New England Patriots, they get one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL to match up with. Kellen Moore versus Dennis Allen. That's big. Dennis Allen's defense not putting a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks means that Kellen Moore and Spencer Rattler might be able to dial up some more of the big plays. We've watched Spencer Rattler over the course of the first 4 games of the season rank 30th in yards per attempt, but then over the course of the last 2 games, number 10, top 10 in the NFL in yards per attempt. He might get more opportunities to do exactly that again with a full starting offensive line, as Kellen Moore had no big medical updates to give on Monday. Hopefully they can stay healthy and keep that going Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday during practice. But now, on top of that, also having and being able to go up against a team that does not generate a lot of pressure over on the defensive side of the football. The Saints need to not give them the opportunity to change that fortune, of course. But if they can buy Spencer Rattler time for those receivers to get open, for them to run some of those downfield concepts, there will be opportunities for Kellen Moore and Spencer Rattler to be able to take advantage of that. The thing they'll need to be concerned about is high variance in their throws. And so those downfield throws need to be picked specifically so that you're not putting the ball in harm's way. Spencer Rattler's got 1 interception on the season, which he threw on a 4th down, trying to give a last-ditch effort for a player to be able to go out there and make a play. Ended up basically being a short punt. But going up against the Chicago Bears, who have taken the football away in the passing game 8 times, like we said, second in the NFL, only behind the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have 10 interceptions on the season. They can't start turning the ball over now, especially not up against a Dennis Allen defense that is on the other side of a Ben Johnson offense, an offense that's still trying to find its way. Caleb Williams, of course, still trying to find his way in his new system as a second-year quarterback, all those other pieces. But you don't want to give them too much life. And so there are advantages here. There are disadvantages here when it comes to matching up with this Dennis Allen defense. But the intrigue cannot be overstated. Kellen Moore, the new leader of this New Orleans Saints team, organization, and roster, right, staff, going up against head-to-head Dennis Allen, the former leader, and the person responsible or considered responsible for the downturn of the golden era of New Orleans Saints football. This is going to be a lot of fun. And the reason why I think that this is so important to Kellen Moore's legacy is because this could be the game that starts something, right? That lights a fire. This is going to be a very emotional game. Whether anybody wants to say it or not, everyone's going to say, nah, it's just another football game. It's not a big deal. It's going to be an emotional game. There's no doubt about that. And if Kellen Moore is able to come out on the right side of this one, on the road, getting the team's first road victory of the season, that could be massive for the confidence of this New Orleans Saints team and its trajectory moving forward. And one big piece for the New Orleans Saints offense when it comes to this has a bone to pick with Dennis Allen, and that is running back Kendre Miller. Let's get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is underway, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for every NFL kickoff every weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. All you got to do is pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll walk away with $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. More money lines, more spreads, player props, same game parlays, live betting, which is one of my favorite features on FanDuel. I love finding a favorite who's trailing at halftime and then bet on that comeback. Love all that, especially in college football. A ton for you to check out over at FanDuel. Right now, the New Orleans Saints line has moved back. It is now again has the team as 5.5-point underdogs on the road. So what are you waiting for? Head over to FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today to get started. That's FanDuel.com.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, family. If anybody outside of Kellen Moore has a bone to pick with Dennis Allen, and really Kellen Moore doesn't have a bone to pick with Dennis Allen at all. Kellen Moore was just hired after Dennis Allen. But if anybody's got a bone to pick with Dennis Allen, it is running back Kendre Miller. It always felt like Kendre Miller was never in Dennis Allen's good graces, right? Always kind of felt like, man, there's not really a lot of belief in Kendre from DA. We broke the story here as well as over at LouisianaSports.net about the alleged or purported mishandling of Kendre Miller's second injured reserve stint during the 2024 season, an injury that everyone kind of seemed to believe that Kendre Miller could be back on the field in the same game, somehow turned into a second IR stint for him that he had to kind of go through and navigate. And that led to a lot of confusion, led to a lot of kind of loss in confidence from certain angles. And I'm sure it was a really tough situation for Kendre Miller to navigate. But this season, we've seen an all-new Kendre. He's healthy. He's out there. He's had some strong games. And I think this weekend up against the Chicago Bears, much like this game would be very important or could be very important to Kellen Moore's legacy, this game up against Dennis Allen, directly his defense, which has been really poor against the run so far this year, has a real opportunity to be a game that provides Kendre Miller an opportunity to break out across from the coach that maybe could have utilized him a little bit differently. If anybody is going to be out there that has maybe something to prove on the offensive side to the defensive guy across the field, it might be Kendre Miller. And if he's thinking about it that way, if he's, licking his chops, ready to get going up against this Dennis Allen defense, this is a great matchup for him. We talked about 31st in the NFL against the run, Dennis Allen, Chicago Bears defense. But it goes deeper than that. Chicago, 5th most yards after contact allowed so far in the NFL. 34 missed tackles, according to Pro Football Reference, ties them with the Saints defense around the middle of the pack. But with the 5th most yards after contact allowed, according to Next Gen Stats, that's a major and massive opportunity for Kendre Miller, who right now ranks in the top 15 amongst qualifying rushers that force the most missed tackles in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. We're putting everybody together today. And actually, both Kendre and Alvin Kamara rank within the top 20 with 15 and 14 missed tackles forced, according to Pro Football Focus, respectively. And so this is a positive matchup for Kendre Miller in that area. It's not just after contact, though, where the Chicago Bears struggle. It's before contact as well. 2nd most yards before contact surrendered in the NFL when it comes to the run game. So a real chance with the entire starting offensive line out on the field, which performed pretty well up against the New England Patriots and a really talented defensive line last week, particularly really talented edge rushers last week. And with 2 healthy running backs here that are ready to get going, Alvin Kamara reestablishing that he wants to be here in New Orleans, now gets to go up against the former defensive mind with which he's very familiar. And Kendre Miller, probably with something to prove, probably with a bone to pick, probably with a little bit of a breakout potential ahead of him, going up against Dennis Allen as well, and a defense that has struggled to stop guys just like the both of them, that force missed tackles, that can pick up yards after contact, and that don't need rushing yards created for them by their offensive line because they'll go and get them themselves. Pretty major. We haven't seen the New Orleans Saints have a real breakaway run so far this season. I believe the Saints still have no 20-plus yard runs on the year so far on their offensive side. And so looking at all of that for New Orleans, this provides a major opportunity for New Orleans to be able to get out there and do something that they haven't necessarily been able to do just yet, or be able to at least get to the point to where they're putting up some of maybe these bigger runs and bigger opportunities up ahead of them. And so looking for New Orleans and these two running backs to be able to go out and do that, this would be the week. And this could be big for Kendre Miller. If Kendre Miller does have that big rushing game that he's looking for, that could be the start of a big time, I'll call it rhythm, maybe some momentum, right, for him. Yeah, the Saints are one of 4 teams in the league right now that don't have a 20-plus yard rush. That could change this weekend up against the Chicago Bears. And so finding a way to be able to get that done. I remember talking to TJ Paganetti early on before the season began, who I think is a fantastic young coach. And he talked about how hitting home runs in the run game was a big part of what they're trying to do with their blocking scheme and with what it is that they're trying to create. They haven't necessarily gotten to that just yet. Not just yet. But this could be the game. The Chicago Bears have allowed 14 20-plus rushes so far this season, same as, or just one shy of what the Saints defense has allowed, which has been 15 20-plus yard runs. And the Bears have allowed 2 40-plus yard rushes already this season as well. So this is a big chance for New Orleans. Like there's a lot, and not just for New Orleans, but for Kendre Miller, for Alvin Kamara, for, Kellen Moore. But I love this for Kendre Miller in particular. The way that situation was handled, and to see the way that Kendre Miller just felt so revitalized early on this season during training camp. And you can kind of talk to him a little bit about, or, you can see from him a little bit to where the team, to where he feels like there's a weight off of his shoulders being, 22, 23 years old and having the feeling that he needed to prove to himself that he could still play the game of football. Like how sad is that, right? To be that young and that talented and have to prove to yourself, or feel like you need to prove to yourself that you can go out there and do what it is that you've dedicated your life to doing, which is play football. Kendre Miller's not in that headspace anymore. Kendre Miller's had some strong weeks so far this season, and he could potentially have his strongest going up against Dennis Allen. It will be interesting. Beyond just the two of them, how much more does Taysom Hill get involved this week? Taysom Hill's last game against Chicago was fantastic. Fantastic. And so now, do you get Taysom Hill involved, going up against Dennis Allen? I mean, I don't think that you do or don't just strictly based on the fact that Dennis Allen's on the opposite sideline, but third game now that Taysom Hill is back, how much more does his role grow, even though he took more snaps last week, but touched the ball much less than his first week when he came back? Did get into the end zone, the lone touchdown for the Saints up against the New England Patriots. And so the run game for New Orleans is going to be big, but Kendre Miller's the guy that I'm really, really, really excited to see how this week goes for him, because I imagine he's going to be charged and motivated going up against his former head coach. All right, coming up next, the New Orleans Saints defense has a lot to prove as well as they look for a rebound and look to prove that some of these returning players are good enough to get it done outside of Dennis Allen's scheme. We got that coming up for you next. We continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the absolute best place to go to pick up last-minute tickets for your favorite sporting events. It doesn't take long. I pulled up Game Time, and after just a couple of taps, I found some amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games for as low as $100. If you're in Chicago and you decide spontaneously you want to go and check out this Saints and Dennis Allen revenge game, do it on the Game Time app because they're going to get you all taken care of. They're going to get you 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and, of course, with the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay, and you can even see the view from your seats before you buy the tickets as well. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off over with the Game Time app, which you can download today. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. It's not just players on the offensive side trying to prove something up against Dennis Allen and the Chicago Bears. It'll be the defense as well, especially going up against a very, very good Ben Johnson offense. the thing that's so interesting about the Saints defense going into this game is the amount of returning players that were in Dennis Allen's system that are now in Brandon Staley's system. That includes cornerbacks like Kool-Aid McKinstry and Alante Taylor, edge rushers like Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Chase Young, defensive tackle Brian Brzee, linebackers like Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Isaiah Stallbert, all that. And each one of these players has a different in to why this game might be important to them, right? And again, to every one of these players, it's just another game. But there are some contextual pieces to this that flesh out the storylines a little bit. And sometimes it's not about what Dennis Allen did wrong, believe it or not. In other cases, it's about what he did exactly right. Dennis Allen, like we mentioned earlier, was part of the revitalization of defense here in New Orleans. He took over as a defensive coordinator 2015, 2016, and then really started to institute the defense that he wanted in 2017 as the secondary got rebuilt, as the defense, the pass rush got rebuilt, the aid of a guy like Ryan Nielsen that helped to bolster that defensive line, getting guys like Marshawn Lattimore, as well as Marcus Williams in the 2017 draft, adding these pass rushers, getting the most out of Cam Jordan, all that. And so in some cases, it's not even really just about, oh, people are mad at Dennis Allen and therefore they've got to go and get revenge. In some cases, some of these players might simply want to prove that they can do it without Dennis Allen. Remember, Dennis Allen was a big part of Demario Davis and his revitalization, right? And becoming the great linebacker that he is, or the great linebacker that he's always been, but being in position to earn the recognition as the great linebacker that he has always been, and the steadily still somehow getting better and playing incredibly well linebacker that he is. You think about a guy like Isaiah Stallbert, who is with this team, that was a linebacker, then moved to safety, and then, moved back to linebacker, and has been a special teams guys and all those things. And now all of a sudden the Saints are utilizing him in third down packages on defense at his position of linebacker. And so it's interesting to just sort of see some of those things where it's not really about bad blood, but it's just about, hey, can I prove that it wasn't Dennis Allen's system that made me a good football player? Can I prove that in this Brandon Staley scheme, I can go up against another offensive genius like Ben Johnson and look really good while Dennis Allen has to watch me do it? You know what I mean? And so there are those opportunities. Now, there are some of the rebound opportunities as well. All the times that Alante Taylor got misused in different places. Okay, here's a chance for him. Cam Jordan, right? Getting saddled with Todd Grantham for a year or however long it was, and how poorly that went, and the need to force Cam Jordan into being a run defender instead of allowing him to be an edge rusher, which is what he now is in this Brandon Staley defense. Imagine the excitement of a Cam Jordan who loves to talk his trash, who probably has a lot of respect for Dennis Allen, but imagine him being able to go in as a stand-up pass rusher, run the arc, get around the edge, get a sack, and then know that he just showed Dennis Allen that the reduction in snaps last year weren't necessary, and that saddling him up with Todd Grantham limited what he could be. Great opportunity for him to prove something. Great opportunity for a guy like Carl Granderson to prove that too. Carl Granderson went from being, a 6'4", 6'5", 240-something pound guy coming out of Wyoming to being up to 280, 290 to fit in Dennis Allen's scheme, and never really getting the opportunity to be the speed rusher that he is. And now all of a sudden he's got 4.5, should be 5.5 sacks on the year through the first 6 games, and could add to that tally right while Dennis Allen has to watch. Dennis Allen changed his body and changed his mold, and now Carl Granderson has been a disruptive and impactful pass rusher so far this season. And now, by the way, has Chase Young opposite him, who had a strong game up against the New England Patriots last weekend in his debut. Brian Brzee, now playing 3-4 defensive end as opposed to a 3-tech defensive tackle, has vastly improved already. We see it all over the place so far this season as a run defender, something we didn't see that progress happening with under Dennis Allen. Brian Brzee starting to prove that he can be an all-around defensive tackle, not just a pass-rushing defensive tackle and pressure player from the interior, but that he can be all-around 3 down, and he gets to show that while Dennis Allen has to watch. Kool-Aid McKinstry didn't get opportunities not because of Dennis Allen, but because there was Marshawn Lattimore and because there was Paulson and Debo early on in the season. It wasn't really until Dennis Allen was gone and then Marshawn Lattimore was traded that Kool-Aid McKinstry really got the bulk or wealth of opportunity. Now he's had an up and down season so far this year. Can he show something while Dennis Allen has to watch, right? So there are major opportunities for a lot of these players who probably don't even have it out for Dennis Allen, have no bone to pick, but have every reason to prove that you are the player that goes out there and makes the plays and that the scheme didn't make you into that. And so that's going to be super, super interesting to watch, to see how the New Orleans Saints defense manages that while being up against the test of a mobile Caleb Williams, an innovative and tricky offense in Ben Johnson, who will call those trick plays and challenge you in ways that other offenses won't be willing to. Ben Johnson is not afraid to take a risk. He's in his first year as a head coach with a team that's going to have a lot of patience with him, and he's going to be willing to pull out all the stops. And really, honestly, that should push Kellen Moore to do the same thing. What you got to lose? Go out there, be aggressive, have fun. That's what I think you're going to see from this New Orleans Saints defense, because that's the only way to match up with an aggressive offense. And so you're going to have to do that. Now, can you do that? Say it with me, while Dennis Allen is on the sideline and has to watch you do it. Boy, I can't wait. I think this is going to be a very fun game, and I cannot wait. The revenge game for Dennis Allen. Who wins? Dennis Allen getting the revenge, or the New Orleans Saints getting the revenge after Dennis Allen put them on a nosedive from their golden era? We'll be breaking it all down here as we continue on throughout the week. Come tomorrow, crossover Thursday with Lauren Cox. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a party day part of your routine for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Know how the family's doing them, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.